to the sport and the football side of your life, like?
Me personally, being PRO of Castleview, so you're answering 10, 15 emails a week. You're on top of social media every single day. You're planning your week ahead as well, so that's kind of stopped. Like, you have to check in every couple of days to see how the social media is going. You have to try to plan around that then as well. Like, you don't want to be posting stuff for the sake of posting stuff, but you want to post stuff that's relevant as well.
Yeah, like there's one thing that I suppose we'll throw it out there. So outside of where we are now, was it a honeymoon, lads, at the start? To be honest, when it kicked off first, and you didn't have training on Tuesday and Thursday, and you didn't have all those emails, was it a honeymoon at the start for you, Gavin?
No, it was a novelty. You could say that, but definitely, I think. See, people are used to a structure. They're used to a way of doing things. The season is, you're doing pre-season, the season starts. Your Tuesday nights, your Thursday nights, your Saturday or Sundays, they're all taken up. You plan ahead. And then all of a sudden you find there's nothing to do on a Tuesday night and nothing to do on a Thursday night and there's nothing to do the weekend. And you might get a week or two where you think, sure, I could do it the rest and I'll get to see the match on the telly. But then by the third week of it, you find yourself chomping at the bit. You've nothing to do.
It's fizzled out.
Yeah, and then if you are allowed work, you're one of the lucky ones. If you're after being laid off, you there's so much extra pressure and responsibility on your shoulders all of a sudden, and very easily the novelty just wears off then.
And Peter, would you find as well, like, that the novelty, which is a good word, Gavin, that the novelty factor, like anything, wore off fast for you, or how far after the kind of stop of everything did you find yourself saying, I'm kind of getting allergic to this now, like?
I think there was definitely novelty about it, to be honest, Alan, but that winter before COVID hit was very bad in terms of, matches being called off. There was a couple of heavy weekends even across January and February, like the Senior League and the AOL and the Business League cancelled weekends for the first time, I'd say, in years. So even with that then and COVID hitting, there was a lot of stop-start, and the novelty definitely wore off within a week or two. Even as me, just to clarify on that introduction, I'm still a player with UCC, so I haven't retired yet, not that old. But saying that, like with the whole stuff, I'm working with the Business League and the MFA, it kind of got a bit hectic at the start with my role, because I had to not mind do UCC things. I also had to get the communication out to the league via the FA or via what the FA have said out to the league and the clubs. So that first 2-3 weeks was hectic for myself.
Yeah, I think, Dean, you just mentioned it there, like with anything where there's a change. So pre-pandemic, if there was a change in a fixture or a change in a meeting, there's work involved. You must have been swamped when this thing kicked in to keep people abreast of what's actually happening in real time.
What we tried to do as a club was try to get as many people or volunteers on board. So you'd have all the people that would be normally coaches to step into like subcommittees. So it kind of shared the burden across the club itself, rather than 2 or 3 people doing all the main jobs. You then have 10, 15 people all weighing in. And to be fair to everyone that started doing stuff that would be outside our normal remit, they've done it fantastically.
Do you think that'll continue on after COVID? Just as a side note, like, do you think if they've got a feel of it, will they continue to volunteer maybe?
I would think so. Yeah, I think so. Like, a lot of people again, like, yourself, like you ask people to put up their hand to do a job, and most people wouldn't do it. But then
you volunteer them.
Yeah, you'd volunteer someone to do it. Yeah. But then people are seeing that it's not that hard to do. You're only sacrificing a couple of hours a week. So you'd have loads of committees within the club, and there's just people stepping up. Like we've added in the last year, we added our women's team. So we've a whole new section of the club to look after as well. So you've from our academy up to our senior team, and then the ladies team then as well. There are just so many jobs there that people are looking after.
Gavin, if I can come to yourself, you mentioned there your own children and stuff like that. How do you fill the time in your house?
If you were talking to my son and my wife, they'd probably say that my son is probably in lockdown since he's about 12 because he got his Xbox and he just switches off, that kind of way.
Yeah.
But so he's experiencing lockdown from the point of view of he's getting very good on Xbox and he's contemplating a different kind of future for himself. And then my daughter is 14 and she really enjoys the social side of school, and that's very hard for her.
Mm-hmm.
So what we find ourselves is that we nearly have to put some kind of plan in. I find myself, I take my son out every second day and we do some form of physical training with him, whether it's weights or running.
It's the structure, like we mentioned it, that when you're a player or if you're a manager or even a supporter, you have a structure, you know what's happening, you know what time you're there at. But like, if there's anybody watching as well online, we're live on the social media platforms. Brian is bringing up stuff where you can contact us. If you have any questions for the lads, if you're a player, if you're a parent and you want to have kind of get the lads' ideas as to how to fill the time. But Dean, when you look at it from the current now, where do you think things will change in the next couple of weeks, a month? You might bring us up to speed as to what your understanding of it is for the change maybe that's coming in April.
Yeah, so there's a bit of communication from the FAI down to the Schoolboys League that they have fixtures in place for April. Now, it's just a plan that they have. Some people would say that if they didn't have a plan, people would complain that there's no communication, so it's better for them to have a plan so they can just straight away get fixtures in place. Other than that, there's nothing else. The only communication we have is from under 7s up to under 16s, and that's starting 2 weeks on Monday. But that's not going to happen. That's pie in the sky stuff. So they'll probably push it off to sometime in the summer, or we'll see what the situation is with the schools to see if there's cases coming out of the schools. And if there isn't, I think they'll push forward with the smallies first and then move up to maybe under 13s to under 16s after that. Yeah. But there's a lot of information on the FA's website, but they're rehashing the same stuff all the time.
I think, though, we were talking while we were in limbo before we went live, bringing the children back to school, Peter, is obviously very needed and it's a necessity. What's your opinion on the fact that children can't go kick a ball for an hour and a half in open space?
I just think, like you said, for 90 minutes outside, there should be a review of that, I think. With the schools going back recently, I have a couple of friends who are teachers and they have 20-30 kids in the class all day, and at the weekends then they can't go out and have training or play a bit of football with their friends for minutes. I think that just needs to be reviewed. I understand that, the government and the FAI's decision in some way, but at this point I think just people need to get back and the kids need to get back playing football as well.
Mm-hmm. Gavin, your perspective on that, firstly as a parent, would you be comfortable for your children to go back to sports, the capacity that they're involved in at the moment?
I'm probably more worried about the effect of keeping them away from sport is having on the kids right now than I am about the kids possibly picking up COVID. Anybody who's familiar with any type of schoolboy game or schoolgirls game will understand there's not that kind of pack culture with the way the kids play, and there's not that kind of pack culture where that the parents all stand in one corner, all 40 of them. They don't. You're lucky if you might see a mum and a dad stand next to each other, or a dad and a granddad, and because they're just there to watch their child play. Whereas what the effect it's having on the child looking at 4 walls or a computer for 10 hours a day is that's what frightens me. Like my son loves playing soccer, but I'm afraid, and he plays for Everton 16s Premier. I'm afraid that when they do say, come on, we go back playing, he might just turn around and say, no, Dad, I don't want to play anymore.
That actually came up.
I know.
Sorry, Peter, that came up in a conversation.
Sorry, I know we're focused on the kids, but just that point there about, getting back when it does, the same can say for adults. And and young adults, because even for myself, I'm stuck in this room 9 to 5:30 every day, and I usually have training maybe once, twice a week. I don't at the moment. And at the weekend, what am I going to do? I'll go downstairs to the living room, watch football or play PlayStation. So even for me, it's the same attitude about your mental health for both kids and adults is taking a huge hit at the moment.
I think a big point, and that was something I was going to lead on to, that there's two parallels to this story, that children work under the guidance of their parents, but as adults, you work under your own guidance. So you use your common sense, okay? So take yourself, Peter. Now, you're obviously being responsible, and you mentioned your patterns of what you do. But if things changed in the morning and you were allowed to go back playing sport, do you see that being a problem?
I don't think so. It's just getting back to the swing of things and getting back into the routine. I mean, the FAI have reams upon reams of protocols for going back playing. So in that sense, like, I'm close to the MFA and I'm close to the FAI in terms of those protocols and rolling them out to the league. So I do think that it is safe in one respect of returning back to training and playing football. So I'd be comfortable in going back. But look, that's just my own opinion. I mean, in terms of the league, I want it to be back as soon as possible. But I also take on board if clubs, like, from my point of view, look, we're in a different aspect too, because we're the business league. We're working with a lot of employees and people working in factories and companies. So in that sense, we're kind of working on if companies want to actually send back employees to play football and maybe, put funding into that. If they say, no, we don't want our employees to get at risk of COVID, then that's another big thing that we need to take into consideration. But away from that, I'm happy enough to, cut back as soon as we can.
as a player, like,
and
you look at this from the perspective of the young people. Like, what sort of questions and queries would you be getting from parents who may not be invested in the game like yourselves?
I'd manage the social media side for Castle, so I get messages literally every single week asking when did they go back, have you heard anything? So you can see parents want their kids to be out as well, and obviously with them going back to school, they probably see a light at the end of the tunnel that they can actually go back and play football. Which, like, to Peter's point, like, it's fine saying, oh, we'll all go back, but it's the problem with probably less than 1% of the players won't go back, and other ones are probably stuck inside a room every day, 24 hours a day. Say the guys know, like Gavin's son is 16 years of age. He's probably in secondary school. He's doing all his schoolwork in his bedroom, then playing PlayStation or Xbox straight away. And then when it comes to going back, he might say no, and he might be lost to the game then straight away. And fast forward 5 years, how's his mental health because of that, and not playing sport, not being around his buddies, because he's stopping something that he's done for probably 11, 12 years. That's
definitely.
It's how you catch them and how you get them back into the game. And also, it's a good thing for football fans that there's football on telly every single night. But if you say, oh, you football now, or you've training's back on a Tuesday night and the Champions League is back, they're just going to say, I'm not going out in the rain at all. I'm going to stay in here and watch the match and then play my Xbox.
But with that though, Gavin, like you mentioned about the grandparents, like, I always take a positive from a negative, right? And in this, personally, I've taken a positive that the basics, we all restock, come back to normality. I think that this could be a good thing, because people who may not have paid attention to grassroots before, when it resumes and there's a match down around the corner, is that not a luxury for people then, Gavin?
I think, fortunately or unfortunately, you take for granted the things that are there all the time, and then all of a sudden, when they're gone, you're kind of, where did that go? I didn't realize that meant as much as it did. You know, like, I still find that going to the matches for me is more about meeting people that at this stage of my career, like, than it is about, say, going to watch the quality of the football that's on play at the time. My biggest fear as a chairman of a soccer club is that the 50 or 60 members that we had before this lockdown was put in place, how many of them, A, will come back and play football after the lockdown with us again? Or B, unfortunately, we have to lose one or two of them over COVID. I think the knock-on effect of the lockdown is going to affect people and clubs in ways that right now we just aren't in a position to understand.
We did reach out as well to some clubs in the county. Unfortunately, due to time constrictions, they weren't in a position. We did have another club from the south side, but again, they just weren't able to get a representative. Peter, do you think that this affects counties worse than, we'd say, city teams because of numbers? That, as Gavin said, people will just say, you know what, I survived without playing ball for 12 months and I'm grand.
I think there's a big, like the city teams, because it's such a close-knit community in the city. Like we talked about Fairfield, we talked about up in Mayfield as well, of the amount of different players and teams in the north side as well. But whereas if you go further out, I think that's a lot, people are a lot more away or just distant from football, even as it is in a normal time. So like if they're not seeing it at the moment, back then maybe, they definitely won't be seeing it now. Whereas at least in the city, you might see someone in the shops that you had a very, you tussled with over in the past as a teammate or as an opponent. Whereas in out the country, unfortunately, you may not see those people, and that banter or that connection that you have won't be there. So I think it will be difficult for people out the country. Not too sure. Like I actually hadn't thought about that.
It's just I live in a rural area, and like I played hurling football up until a couple of years ago, and it was always that struggle. But for me, the way I see it, a lot of people in football, they change clubs maybe every couple of years because there's options there. But like that's a real problem that's going to be faced. Like Gavin, your point there, and Ian as well. What happens if fellas just throw their hat at it and say, you know what, I'm actually grand going for my jog or going for my walk? What would you think there, Gavin?
I've seen this over my time playing ball now, coming right up from, say, 16, 17, 18, right up to the point I'm on 48. And I've seen a natural transition with fellas where they've just stopped playing ball for the most inexcusable reasons. They don't make sense. They just say, nah, I can't be bothered anymore. Like that's when things were normal. Now we're in an abnormal situation where a guy has been removed from, like, this was his get out of the house procedure, his Tuesdays, Thursdays and his weekend, go down to the pub for a couple of pints, the lads, great crack, all that's gone. So it's what he's doing now to fill that time. Will he want to come away from what he's gotten used to for the past 6 months, 9 months? He's getting used to being a different person in a different way. Now, whether it's walking his dog.
But like, we all are really, so it's just, it is depending on that person, as you said, and how they're affected if they want to go back.
I think what you'll find is
the old normal.
The level of involvement you have with the club. Like, obviously, everyone here now tonight is very heavily involved in their own particular setups. It's a bit easier to kind of keep the connect. Keep in contact with people, check the club, call up, do little jobs, that kind of thing. But the guy who just literally trains on Tuesdays and Thursdays and turns up for his game on Saturday or Sunday in the third division. He's not even the best footballer in the world. He just loves the banter and the pints.
I'll just read out one or two comments there, lads. You mentioned about the link. Brian, we might bring up that one about the referees. So ask the lads, will they think there will be refs for the games? Will they be comfortable with being back? What would you think about that, Dean?
I think, like, majority of referees that are there are all ex-players, so they probably were affiliated to some clubs but decided to get into refereeing, so it's the same as being a player. So their routine would be going to 2 or 3 matches every weekend. They're obviously being hit in the pocket then as well because of that. But I think the majority of them would come back fairly easily.
I think a lot of them would come back. Yeah, they'd be jumping to come back.
But you see, they get changed in a different room. They're not around the players. They just arrive, do their thing, and leave. So
Yeah, but it's like you're thinking of the question there. No, even at that, it's a comparison to schools and teachers. You know, it's a different environment when you're playing ball, whether you're a referee, a linesman, as Gavin said, the guy turning up. You know, we have a couple of people up in Grattan, Jesus, should be lost without them. Nets, lines, everything. You know what? That's their day out. Like that's their out time away from the house. So I think any referee, you know, a couple of them play with Grattan and they don't always go on their side of favour.
Is there any referees
No,
watching?
but,
Lads? If there's any referees watching, we'd love to have your opinion. You know, if you want to put it in. Brian, you might just read out that one there. That's actually a very interesting point about the elite teams. Lads, you might just read that out there and have a listen. We might take that as a topic.
Elite teams have been training and playing schoolboys and amateur or not. Is there a disadvantage to this group in terms of the cream of the crop who would be trying to make the step up to elite level over the next couple of years with this step getting? That's even, again, looking at who will be running the country in a few years, yeah.
Yeah, I can actually shed some light on that. With regards to elite teams training and playing, it's only the senior elite is allowed to train and playing at the minute. I have a dual role. I'm chairman of Grattan, but I'm a committee member with Mayfield United because I live up in Silver Springs. And they're literally the club on my doorstep. So Cove train above in our grounds. So it's strictly only their senior team and it's very, very highly regulated. I'm familiar with the underage structures for Cork City and Cove as well. And they do Zoom meetings, Zoom training. That's the stage they're at, just to clarify that as well.
Yeah.
It's only the elite senior teams are training, that's it.
Yeah,
I was actually going to throw it out there actually as a topic, like Zoom thing. Like how many of you either experienced it as a player or like what's your views on that there, Peter? Or did you do stuff like that on Zoom or something online?
Not our club, but there has been clubs that have done online Zoom or kind of virtual training, virtual 5Ks. But we as a league, we tried to do a Zoom kind of a soccer hit training before Christmas, which it should have had a lot of numbers, but we found that because there was so much uncertainty at the time of when teams were going back training, there was very little take up of it. And now, once we go back maybe in a couple of weeks, and if we get a date from the FAI, we might try that online training again. But I think it does definitely depend on the structure of like committees and what clubs have in the background if they actually want to do this training.
It's like, call a spade, right? Any manager of whether it's children or if it's adults, they don't want to lose the connection with their players, right? They want to keep them together. But think about the people who are not like us that can turn on a computer or even set up one of those videos. Like if you're a non-IT person, Dean, like what would you think that is like for a manager or even a parent to how to get the child onto it?
If you're a parent of a child, it kind of be okay because that's what they're doing in school anyway. But if you have someone, just say the manager of a senior team that's in his mid to late 50s and he's given a date of 6 weeks time and the club make the decision to do their training over Zoom or something like that, sure, he's not going to do that at all, or he's going to find it very hard and everyone's going to miss out on it. But so he'd probably need a bit of training on that. So it's how many of them can't do it and how many of them will do it is the question. So that's a tough one, to be honest.
There was a message just came up there actually about the under 14s. We're currently training with Zoom. I think that's meant to be clueless. Twice a week with Leeds under 14s. The boys are taking it up very well.
I'd say.
Classes, yeah.
I was thinking clueless, and he's just rising it anyway.
I think that's a spam filter for some.
It's on the right. But yeah, like I know I mentioned my own daughters are involved in ladies football. Like the Zoom thing or the online thing, as you said, Gavin, the connection being lost is a real fear for a manager. But as a parent, potentially you're even more fearful because you physically have seen your child for the last 12 months and how they evolved. Like, how would you adapt, Gavin, from the trainer's point of view if things opened up next week and your numbers were down? What would you think you could do there?
I think that's a great question. It's a huge worry. You see, you have to look at the demographics of the age groups as well that you're dealing with. Dean kind of touched on it there. The kids in Zoom meeting is easy for them. It's they're so used to just getting their phones tap, 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 and it's a novelty for them. They love it. I did, as I said, my son did it with Everton. They trained for 2.5 months with Zoom twice a week, and they loved it. But it's different then. You're looking at a fella 28 or 29, and you're telling him there's a Zoom meeting on a Tuesday night, and he's sitting on the couch with a bottle of beer watching the match.
Yeah.
That's the reality of the situation.
Or he's doing the Zoom with a bottle of beer.
Yeah, like that's the reality of the situation. Like,
Yeah.
Or trying to connect audio on an Android. We've been there as well.
He's there kind of going to himself, hang on, I'm a bit long in the tooth here now.
Like it does depend if the club, if you're an elite club, or like it would maybe be a bit more difficult if your club was maybe in a lower section of a league or not performing well, and you didn't have a group of players that would commit to training even once a week. That would, like, even if you see it on a pitch, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, not enough people at it on a good day, there's not going to be many people doing it
because
on a Zoom call.
If you kind of look at things rationally, there's only one team in every league at the end of the season can win it, right? So as long as you're going well and winning games, you'll get people up on Tuesday or Thursday nights and training, no problem. You'll be lost. You'll have so many bodies, right? Yeah. That's great. But then the situation you're alternatively looking at is that if you're only a mid-table team in the second division or the third division, and your training is one night a week, and you hope to have 5 sides instead of training, like all of a sudden then, lads, we're going to have a Zoom meeting. That level of commitment is not going to be there. Like I'd be familiar now with the Cork City kind of situation there recently, where they organised a Zoom training meeting where they had Caoimhín Kelleher was the designated speaker at the meeting.
Well, I've seen that, yeah.
They had 20 odd people. They had every player logged on for that training session, and they'll get every training session full out because they're Cork City. Yeah. But realistically speaking, you apply the same logic to, I don't know.
I know what club you say.
Yeah, so you're saying like any generic second division or third division club. Whoever's down the bottom of
you're not going to get many numbers at all.
Yeah. And I think that's just there are some clubs that will take advantage of the position we're in now. It happened.
Just if you've joined us, we'll take a midpoint break shortly. But if you haven't just joined us on the Monday Club, we took a break for a couple of weeks. We had a couple of projects on, so it just wasn't feasible for us to do it. So we're joined here with the lads having a chat about soccer, local soccer, schoolboys. So we'll talk about what's possibly going to happen after the 5th of April, right after this.
Yeah.
Hi everybody, it's Alan from Unity here, and we're asking you if you'd like to get involved. If you're a community group, sporting organisation, or indeed a business you'd like to take part, we'd love to hear from you. You can contact us on our usual social media platforms, of course our website unitymedianetwork.com.
And we are back, and just to let people know as well, just based on that, this is something that we did intend on doing in the studio last year, but we couldn't wait any longer. We said we get it up and running now. But if anybody does want to get involved or has any ideas of when restrictions and things like that lessen and loosen, that we can do things on the road and remote broadcast, possibly sport, let us know. So, and that, take it away, Alan.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. Peter, I'll come to you for the second part here. We'll just look ahead, right? Things are going to change. Yep. What do you think now clubs are doing to be ready for when things open up? What are they putting in place to ensure all the stuff we've been talking about happens and they do get lads back?
So, like, they'll have to plan for the positive, like get maximum numbers of people at training, and maybe new committee members. So I think in some way this might be a blessing in disguise for some clubs. So I think they might have a refresh in the background for committee members. They might have new training plans. So when we do get back to football, it might be a refresh to them to have a new lease of life and new players if they come back. Because I think we were always saying before the break about people not returning and people saying, I'm happy enough where I'm here, not going training. Whereas the other aspect of it, you might get people who were thinking of retiring, or even younger lads who are now 18, 19 that actually want to be playing in adult football in our sense, or want to keep playing in schoolboys. So I think it's just clubs have to prepare for the best case scenario, and it's back as soon as possible.
Gavin, you're obviously involved in two sides of it. Like, what sort of stuff are you and your colleagues doing in the background for the last couple of weeks? Like, what are you kind of keying up at when it does happen?
I tell you, the biggest issue we have for months and months, it's just general upkeep of the grounds. Just keep in touch with what condition the grounds are in. Like, grass grows and needs to be cut, but then all of a sudden you're not allowed to get your grass cut because it's not essential, but you still have to get some kind of work done to it. 9 times out of 10, no matter what club you're from, if there's a shutdown in football, inevitably you will get people starting to come onto the grounds, and then that creates another issue.
Like with the grounds thing, and I know, like, obviously a club that's close to the lads, and it's bad. Like, Grattan has been vandalised a number of times, and as you said there, Gavin, people don't see that if it is locked down and there's nothing happening, stuff is going to happen. Like, you might just give us a bit of background there, Dean, from the Grattan side of it.
I'm not involved in Grattan at all.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I know that.
Castleview.
Grattan and Castleview have had vandalised as well. Like, I mean, their dugouts were done. Was it last year or the year before?
Yeah,
it's actually Grattan United has been vandalised a couple of times. We've
They've been vandalised
on the
as well,
radio about it. Yeah, we've been on the radio about it numerous times. We've had our burnt out car that we had to get removed. That was just being left up there. People in on the old training pitch, glass bottles broken all over the place, inside and outside, or fence being destroyed. And look, we've been on about it. We've been on to the authorities. We've been on to the guards. We've been on the radio about it, and it seems to be just continuously happening. But this was before restrictions. It just seemed to have gotten worse and a bit more frequent during restrictions.
Well, as Gavin said, if things aren't happening to the pitch and it's not being maintained because you're not allowed to maintain it, then it's going to be a problem. Have you experienced any of that, Peter, on any of the clubs?
So, luckily in one sense, but unluckily, really, most of our clubs don't own their own pitches. We rent off a lot of the community schools and the other clubs around Cork. So, in that sense, we haven't had any issues, to be honest. So I can't comment on that one. But I would assume, just like you said there, look, if clubs aren't looking after, if people are to do things, they're going to just try and get into places that they can't into usually, which is awful.
That picture there, even just have a look at it. That was Grattan United last year, and we weren't allowed to basically maintain our pitch, and that, that's kind of we look after our pitch, obviously, and an awful lot of other clubs do, but some clubs don't have the means to do it, or they may not have the finances available to do it. But that was our pitch at one point. That's the picture I took up in Grattan because I'm within 5k.
Yeah, Gavin, you made a point there as well about the upkeep. Like, how are clubs fundraising when they can't fundraise? Because there's nothing happening. You can't go to the local pub to do the normal thing, or
no.
Alan, that's another very, very good question that I think has been lost along the way. It's not just about not being able to play football. What clubs are being faced with now is nobody could have foreseen this happening, right? And the majority of clubs, bar the top tier clubs, the bigger clubs, Dean will know what I'm getting at here now, the big Munster Senior League clubs, the bigger Cork AUL clubs, they're financially, I won't say safe and secure, but they're financially set up in a way that they'd be able to handle this for a certain amount of time, a lot more than easily 80% of the Cork AUL, who live very much in his existence of hand to mouth. They might run a draw down in the local bar, they pay script if they're lucky, and they get the referee out of the way, and then they'll go on to next week. But what you'll find now is that the clubs like ourselves, Mike Grattan, the biggest issue I have at the minute now, our insurance company didn't kind of put a freeze on our insurance because we weren't allowed to use the ground anymore.
Yeah,
they continue every month to take out their money like clockwork. Our electricity goes to our dressing room every week, and there's a bill every month, and the ESB don't say, look, you're not up there, you're not using it, we're not going to charge you. They don't.
Standing charges are there because they're still
because
getting the service. Yeah.
it was an itemised bill, you see, there's no metering up to north.
And then another one would be, again, even simple things like maintenance, just simple stuff like we get the grass cut every week, literally. I know Grattan knows a hill, but it's a well taken care of hill.
Yeah.
Like that, and like as hills go, it's one of the best.
Like
So the fittest players in the north, by running up that hill on the left-hand side.
Dean, do you remember when John Delaney, famous John Delaney, he was up in Grattan, and one of the questions we interviewed him, you might have seen the interview, Brian was on the deck that day, but one of the questions I asked him was, what would you say grassroots levels who don't have funding, they don't have the best jerseys, they don't have the best facilities? And his answer at the time, if I'm not mistaken, Dean, was basically to write to the FAI.
Yeah.
Is that something now you think that every single grassroots club in Ireland should be doing now, is getting on to them to see if they can be funded, and indeed local council and government as well?
They're just wasting paper by doing that. Like, he was handing out checks like there was no tomorrow, and how many of them were cashed is
Just on that, there's
not many.
There's a new grassroots department, or the grassroots department in the FAI. The last couple of months, they're making a lot of effort to speak with grassroots clubs and leagues in Ireland. So, like last week, there was a grassroots webinar that the FAI held, and John Hill, Alan Byrne, and the FAI Communications Department sat in it. And in fairness, they made an effort to talk directly to grassroots football, and they will be kind of in the next couple of months, keeping us up to date with maybe monthly webinars and just updates. So in that sense, maybe obviously it happened since COVID, but it looks to be that they seem to be getting a bigger grasp on grassroots. So hopefully that'll make us benefit in the long term in terms of leagues and clubs. But definitely, we need to be onto the FAI, even as a league. I need to be onto them every couple of weeks to get them to give us clarification on things, not just about COVID.
Even with everything that's went on, I think, even with everything went on, I'd be hoping, that this might highlight what realistically, what kind of situation clubs are in. But I to be honest, and I'll say it straight, I don't think I'd be holding my breath on them doing anything quick and soon for any clubs. Sorry, Gavin, I interrupted you there.
No, all I was going to say to you lads is just don't get confused by a gesture that's put out there, right? When you look at it in the cold light today, the FAI is in a bad way. We know that now over the last couple of years, right? As you said, I think someone just touched on there so eloquently, like your man was literally handing out checks there that you couldn't cash, right? So the FAI are down money. Now, the easiest money the FAI can get is the FAI Junior Cup, the Munster Junior Cup, the FAI Intermediate Cup, these kind of things, right? They're not happening now. All that money is not coming in. So I would expect the FAI to start addressing the cash cow and saying, look, we're paying a bit more attention to you. But I think Dean hit it right in his head. What they'll actually end up doing, like realistically speaking, your affiliation fees, your FAI fees, your Munster Junior fees, they weren't all waived for one season. They still had to be paid. Like we had to pay something like €600 or €700. It was ridiculous, actually, the way the same organisation took advantage of the very people that are putting money into it. Like this year alone, I don't know if you'd be familiar with it all. Like registration fee for the league would be €200, €250, and then there's a Munster Junior Cup, FAI, another 50, right? That's all that done. Then the FAI insisted that you pay €100 one-off payment fee to register your players with them, even though you're paid it to register with the AUL and the Senior League. No, you had to pay €100 for 50 players.
Was that the FAI net?
Yeah, but that's 50 players. So we thought, right, 50 players, that's our first team and our second team. It's a stupid thing to ask us to do. It's an easy €100. That's the way they're making it. No, they came back and said, it's €100 per team.
And
I think the leagues maybe come up with different ways of getting clubs to pay for that. To be honest, I'm not too sure if that's
That
all
had
across
to
different
be
leagues.
that had to be paid in the Cork AUL up front before the first league.
Yeah,
game.
before the
It's the
first
way,
league game,
it's the
and
way
they
the leagues do it, lads. It's
And what
different across different leagues.
Oh yeah, we know that, but
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
what I'm kind of saying is I'd be the administrator now, the FAI net, right? And I
Yeah.
found it very, very how to say, surprising that March of last year that they were insisting on their money, and they wanted their money and they wanted to pay it in advance and fairly quick in comparison
Yeah.
to the 2 years before. You know, I think it's the point of here is this may not have been seen as being common, but I think it was financially that there was pressure put in clubs when it shouldn't have been. Plain and simple. Because we'll straight out and straight it. We'd be probably one of the oldest clubs in Cork and the bigger clubs, and everybody's feeling it financially, some more than others. And that was something I didn't like. And I remember talking to Gavin on the phone about it, and it was just very, very surprising that it was heavy-handed and needed no.
We'll move away from the FA slowly. As you can see there, playing that was the interview. And actually, I could be wrong on this, lads, but I think that possibly was John Delaney's last
interview.
Genuinely, I think it could be. If you check the date, there's just a text or there's a message there, Brian, about the FAI. So somebody said it would be more select clubs that the FAI support and always have. So that's from a Facebook user. But we're just going to bring this one up. I asked you, Gavin, and Peter about what people will be doing. So somebody said, from a management side of things, have a squad of 20-odd players, the social side of kicking the ball with their buddies and winning and putting the hard time in twice a week, training and a match day, it's a great feeling. And the chance of getting everyone of them players back to playing the sooner the better, in my view, even behind closed doors, which we have already done. Ultimately, bringing us on to the latter part of our show, that's what everything is about now with the restrictions that are there. It's to try and get people back. So, Gavin, where do you think the leagues will go, regardless of whether it's the top, middle, or bottom? What way do you think the leagues will be ran? They're given an instance, but in your own opinion, like.
In my own opinion, that email that went around last week is not after helping things at all. I think from a common sense perspective, if we're not allowed to travel anything further than 5 kilometres, how are you going to get around to play your matches? Simple little things like that. From another perspective, until there's proper clarification comes out from Ernie and Bert, as I call them, the two boys up in Dublin, Brad Kerr and Mihal, if the two boys clarify this and then it comes down to grassroots to us eventually, then we'll have a better idea. Up till then, the disinformation is actually it's actually stopping you organising anything, because anything you want to put in place to get you ready to go back to football can't be done then thinking, hang on, the Schoolboys League is back in 2 weeks' time. How can they come back in 2 weeks' time? Then just say your senior teams and your junior teams are going, but the schoolboys are back in 2 weeks' time. I heard the schoolboys are back in 2 weeks, and you're going, look, that's pie in the sky talk. That's just a theory. What I think myself will happen is, I think after Easter, I think the two bios will come back out and say we could be looking at least another 4 weeks. I think realistically speaking, after that, then the practicality of finishing a season is null and void. I think financially, the strain that will be put on clubs. Imagine 2 games a week. That's 2 lots of referees. They have to be paid twice a week. You only pay a script once a week. The money has to come from somewhere. Yeah. It'll hit the bigger clubs in a massive way. Yeah. And then you couple that with the practicality. Hang on, I'm going to have to get in a sponsorship chair. At the start of the season, off a fella, we had no season, and the next season is only starting around the corner. Will I give him back some of this and ask him for a new one?
And ask, it's one. It's kind of
it's a balancing act, like.
Yeah, Peter, what do you think about that?
Yeah, just on even the sponsorship thing, like, we're obviously made up with the majority of our clubs are made up businesses and employees and sponsors of clubs. Like, you think that we're a wealthy league and clubs are wealthy. They're not, because, like you said, they get a sponsor at the start of the season from their HR department or their finance department. And then if we're asking them to come back again in May for a couple of months and then back again in September, they're not going to get that money. Like, would some companies, work on January to December finance year or July to July. We don't know. But in terms of the finance, that's a big part to play in our league as well. I think there's a lot of talk of either if we return in May or June, are we to finish the season or are we to start from scratch in June? So I think there's a lot of debate there on what we could do and what we couldn't do. It's just to get back as soon as possible. Like last season, all the 3 leagues in Cork cancelled their seasons. The CBL, the AOL, and the Senior League. So I thought at the time the FAI should have done a blanket call across all of Ireland to say, look, either finish the season or not. But I think as we go on, it might have been a good call to let them up each league. But at the time, it's a bit of a lot of work to be done.
And even on that point, Dean, do you want to make a point on that? Sorry, Ellen.
Yeah, so like as Gavin was saying, like some clubs won't be able to see it as feasible playing matches twice a week, so they'll have to make a decision. And it's me being a bit biased, but I think once the Senior League has to finish, they null and void last season, so they can't do it again this season.
How many games? How many games in the season did he have until he finished? Until he stopped back in 2020?
They're only about a quarter of the way through.
Okay.
So
we were only 5 in, I think.
They would
see, Dean, what happened with the Munster Senior League then last year left a very bitter taste in people's mouths then as well. It wasn't the league's fault. They left it to a vote. But you can just only imagine, like I touched on earlier, the top 2 or 3 teams are always in with a chance of winning. Those teams in the middle are just going through the motions, and that bunch of 3 or 4 down the bottom, like realistically speaking, if you were given the option and you were in the bottom lot and you said, right, if we cancel the league now, you don't get relegated.
Yeah.
But there was we had the same.
No-brainer.
Like we kind of had an expression of interest, really, not really a vote, but it was a surprise. I thought the same, what you just said there, but it was pretty much 50-50 between teams in the bottom of the league still wanted to play. And teams at the top said, look, if we actually finish now, we're top. So do we get to become champions, So they didn't want to finish, but they wanted to finish.
You could do the points the points per game kind of thing.
So it was, I think at the time we thought it would go one way, but it actually went pretty much 50-50 at the time.
Yeah, I think Eddie Doyle with the Cork Schoolboys League applied that logic, Dean. The points per game that you had accrued, and just you finish out your season that way, and then your promotion and relegation was filled in that way as well. But that was trying to adapt to the situation last season, whereas this season we kind of knew starting it, there was a fairly good chance that we weren't going to get very far.
Yeah, exactly.
So the problem we have here now is like you pointed out so well, there's a fairly big chunk of games that would need to be compressed into a fairly small amount of time.
Yeah.
And then someone touched on it there a while ago again, the referees. Are you going to have the referees available for all these games?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even on that point, lads, look, even to bring it back around now and we'd say tie a knot in it and close off the show. Me personally, I think the whole thing was handled brutally from the top down. I think it was, as you called them, Burton Orney above in Dublin. Taking chances of playing with people's basically public health. They played with it and they toyed with it. And over a year later now, and we're still in the same position because Burton Orney were in control. But if you were to say the biggest impact that all had on soccer, look, we'll go around the table. For me, I think the biggest impact in having no soccer, and this is for a lot of people, was mental health. I think people will miss soccer, and even me personally, I was only going back training and I was up with the lads and stuff, and then to be told stay home, working from home, the whole lot. That was one of the biggest impacts for me, was the exercise side of it and the socialising side of it. Gavin, what would you think was the biggest impact?
I think the mental well-being effect it's going to have on people, and it's had on people. I think there's no way of quantifying it. You can't apply for a grant to get you out of this situation. This is just going to be one where that you're going to hope that you see all your mates and your friends the first Tuesday night after training, and we just try and keep it. It's one foot in front of the other foot after that, the kind of phrase. Then there's nothing you can apply for that's going to help you in this. Like, it's just about offering up as much support as you can to people to try and reintegrate them back into something they've been kept away from.
Peter, what would you think?
Yeah, I'm going to echo the same thing. Mental well-being is going to be a huge factor after this, because I think the last couple of years it's been creeping in slowly. Like, people are getting it, we're getting a small bit aware of it, but in the last 6 to 8 months it's just gotten so much important. Like, even from players playing, managers, people on committees who have given everything to football over the 50 odd 60 years, and now they have nothing to go for over the last year. So I think that's a huge thing that's going to be impacting on them.
Yeah, even as we were even talking about last week, like a year of this and how it was mismanaged has that detrimental effect from everybody.
But even just
and
how
what
we
they were
react as
taking
well.
in
Look,
with,
how we bounce back is going to be, like, hopefully we'll all bounce back stronger. Like, but it's just going to be difficult, I think.
But as Gavin said, there isn't a grant for that. You know what? There isn't,
exactly.
But it's again the social aspect and the club access to it, and that's what it'll be good for, and that's where we'll see the positive of soccer and sport and gain everything. Dean, yourself?
Because everyone said mental health, I'll say physical health. Like, you'll see when everyone goes back, when just say a senior league match, everyone will look like they're all AUL 3B players.
hey, I'm an AUL 3B player now, and I'm literally after you losing a stone and a half, so not everybody.
Not enough.
We didn't say business league.
Not enough.
It's good.
That's actually a compliment to the business league.
Nice one. Thanks a million.
Make a new league.
I used to play business league, so I couldn't do that.
We'll have the Marys, the over 45s and the over 20s.
There's a new law now after being reached. It used to be the senior league, and then you go down to the you're playing with the AUL, and then you went to the Junior League. Now it's the third division AUL.
The only reason I said that because I played all of them.
Dean, I'll quote you on that, actually. Yeah.
Do. Well, what I would say to anyone that is watching it, if they're involved in the club, put their hand up for the
third division.
Third division AUL. If they're involved in any clubs, to put their hand up and to volunteer for any job, no matter what it is. It keeps them busy as well.
And look, lads, Granton United are still signing players, and we'll pay your €2 to the FEI net, no problem. Come away and sign up.
Use the opportunity for the free plug.
Sorry, I meant to say that to start. Full disclosure, I'm the secretary of Granton United.
And you believe in UFOs.
I know, yeah.
It's good, I suppose, to talk, and like the reason we wanted to do this, as opposed to from just a players only perspective, is there's an awful lot of people in limbo, and you guys are among hundreds of people that are you guys, which is the people involved in the teams, the leagues, and the divisions. And it's people like yourselves, if you're finding it difficult to get communication or reading between the lines, and it's constant changing, what's it like for the end user, the player, the trainer, whatever, So we appreciate you coming on, lads.
And just one more, lads, if I could just get your view on this, because I'd be a big advocate for it, especially the way the weather goes. Do the lads think summer soccer will happen?
Well, we know John Delaney was a big advocate of that, and since then, in the last 2 years, it's just stopped. So in terms of the FAI, do the FAI want to do it? I don't know.
I think it's a good idea anyway. I think it's a brilliant idea because it will avoid those cannot play a game from September till January, and somebody in the AUL, I won't say his name, ripping his hair out when I have to ring him on a Saturday.
I personally, and this is based on experience, I couldn't see the AUL or the Munster Senior League agreeing to do it because of the turnaround time with the following season. I think they'll either just make it a clean break now, and then they will restart the season earlier, and they'll probably take the Christmas break out of it as well to kind of facilitate getting as many games played as possible. Remember now, lads, football in Cork is driven by economics, and they're going to want to get clubs back on their feet as quickly as possible. And not stretch it out further, because remember now, even if they cancel the season next week or Easter, a lot of clubs still have to have their insurance in place. They still have to be paying for the upkeep of the pitches. They're still looking for sponsorship. and you're going to have that extended gap where the insurance company still wants you to pay your insurance, but there's no money coming in to cover it.
Yeah.
So what they're going to do, hopefully, is they'll call a halt to the season. Most clubs will have a direct debit situation, so they'll just finish that, and then there'll be a little gap, and the season will start, and the money will start to trickle back in, and the wheels on the club will start to turn again.
Yeah.
Dean, on that point, you'll get the last word now before we do the winning streak wave.
Or rather, Matt Cooper's line.
Matt Cooper, yeah, you get the last word, Dean. In with the last word, Dean. No.
I don't think they'll ever do the summer soccer simply because the too many players play GA as well, and they start at the same time. But they have to get back as soon as they can. Either start a new league straight off, or start a mini league, which is chop it up and just get players and get people back playing football. As Gavin said, once they're back playing football, the clubs will start making money and then set a date for when it's going to start up again. But it's whose decision it is. I think the AUL should just make the decision themselves. If the FA give them go ahead rather than saying you have to do it certain ways, or the other Munster Senior League, it's up to themselves really, and the Shipping League.
So look, I think we'll leave it at that. You got the last word, Dean, as always. Always has to get the last word. But look, on that, lads, thanks very much for joining us. Sorry about the technical difficulties at the start.
Yeah,
but look, it happens.
It was a good show, and it was a good way to kind of kick us off after a couple of week break as well. Next week we'll be delving into another sport, multiple sports. We've a few people lined up. I'm not going to give away too much, but again, if you have any topics that you'd like us to talk about, or are involved in any club, any sport, any community group, this is what it's about. It's just reaching out, having a chat with people, just to kind of get people's views and stuff. And it's not serious, it's not anything. But I really enjoyed the chat. I enjoyed your perspectives on, both the children's side of things and the adult playing. So
and the mental health as well, yeah.
I really appreciate the time. Yeah, thanks very much.
Alan.
So lads, if we could all do the cheeky winning streak wave. So when you win on winning streak, it's.
And they say, and right up is Brian from Cork.
And if you hold and don't disconnect and just stay till we're done, all right? So
Bye.
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 Dean from Unity Media Network here. If you or anyone own a business, or you specialise in a certain topic, if you want to contribute in some way, or you need help in a certain area, contact us via Messenger, DM on Twitter, or email us admin@unitymedianetwork.com, or visit the website, or fill out the contact form, and we'll contact you.